Phil Jackson is one of the most successful NBA coaches in modern history and one of the biggest legends in the game. But he revealed recently on a podcast that he doesn't even really watch the NBA anymore because he got tired of their political agenda, including the slogans on the court and on the jerseys.
And they had things on their back like, justice and, I made a little funny thing like, Justice just went to the basket and equal opportunity just knocked him down.
We're going to listen to the full clip, react to it, and talk about how crazy that pandemic season was with virtual fans, fake crowd noise on the television, and an empty arena for basketball players to play in. Welcome to the Dream Rare Podcast, folks. The show starts now. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of the Dream Rare Podcast. So, Phil Jackson is one of the most legendary figures in NBA history. He's one of the most winningest coaches. He coached Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, and he was always known as the Zen Master. He wasn't particularly conservative. He was into Native American culture, very vibey, very classic hippie mindset, really getting people in the zone. And apparently even the left-wing social justice activism of the NBA is too much for him. And he says he doesn't even watch anymore. And the tipping point was when they started painting slogans on the floor and on the backs, which many people remember was like Black Lives Matter all over the floor. Without further ado, let's play a clip of the podcast. It's called Tetragrammaton by Rick Rubin. For those who don't know, Rick Rubin is a huge producer, music mogul of sorts in the music business. And I think he created a new podcast to talk to non-musicians. And one of his first interviews was Phil Jackson. So let's just listen to a couple minutes of it uninterrupted. Here's one of the biggest icons in NBA history saying, I don't even watch the NBA anymore because it's too much politics and I don't like it.
Some of the guys I coached, they're talented, Phil. They're really talented players. I know, but I'm not enjoying the games. It's like, that's too bad. There's a new generation that'll like it. They'll like the game. So.
Do you still watch a lot of basketball or?
No, I don't.
Tell me about that. When and did you stop immediately from the time you stopped coaching?
No, I didn't. I watched some of the game evolve and decided, and they went into the lockout year and they did something that was kind of wanky. They did a bubble down in Orlando, and all the teams that could qualify went down there and stayed down there.
No audience.
And they had things on their back like, justice and, I made a little funny thing like, Justice just went to the basket and equal opportunity just knocked him down. And somebody had another name for a guy who has jersey in the back of a jersey, had some other slogan. So my grandkids thought that was pretty funny to play up those names. So I couldn't watch that. And the Lakers won, actually. They won that year. And
do you feel like it just made little of the game, like it made it like a sideshow? What do you think it was that turned you off?
Well, it was. They even had slogans on the floor, on the baseline. It was catering. It was trying to cater to an audience or trying to bring a certain audience into play. And they didn't know it was turning other people off, People want to see sports as non-political. We've had a lot of different type of players that have gone on to be like, Bill Bradley was a senator, number of baseball players been representatives and senators and political, but their politics stay out of the game.
Yeah, it's separate.
Doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
So that was Phil Jackson saying he thought it was pretty corny that they were putting slogans on their jerseys, on the floor, and that it's become too political. I agree. Someone said, before I get into my take, someone said in the comments, I like to read them. Some people think it distracts them. Sometimes it adds to the show. They said maybe triangle offense was some sort of Freemason thing that he was trying to do. I think the triangle offense was like a triangle shape. Like if you play soccer or basketball, you want a triangle all the time, so you have two different options. Like in soccer, you always want triangles. It's not because all the players are Freemasons. It's because that's the optimal way to have multiple options. So if there's one defender, you always have somewhere to pass it or move to. So I'm pretty sure that's what the triangle offense was, but it's a bit of a reach. Anyway, during the lockdown season, the pandemic season, one of the biggest, I would say, distractions and diversions of all time was making everybody buy into this racially divisive narrative and also pushing social justice activism at a time where we could all unite under government tyranny. Everybody was locked down. Kids were getting fatter. If you live in the inner city and you don't have a yard or somewhere to go or a gym, you were almost definitely having your health weakened and destroyed by the government and the corporations. And instead of people coming to their senses and being like, you know what? This can't be good to do for very long. And now everyone's crying about, oh, my eggs are too much. The prices are too much. A lot of that is hangover from 2020 when both parties just imploded the economy and Democrats went even further. But as long as we have this narrative of justice, hey, we're locking you in your house. We're basically replacing you with cardboard cutouts at the games. There's virtual fans, like Microsoft did a partnership with the NBA to do virtual fans. All the players are wearing forced masks, and their masks say, I can't breathe on it, but they're not even talking about the mask. They're talking about George Floyd. Black Lives Matters on the floor. Everybody's kneeling in an empty arena because we're living in a 1984 sci-fi nightmare where you're not allowed to go to sports anymore. We're living a nightmare movie, sci-fi movie, but as long as Goran Dragic has justice on his back and LeBron James has equal opportunity on his back, everyone will have a new narrative to run circles about. At the craziest time to not pay attention to the most crazy thing happening in modern history, which was the government and the corporate class essentially telling 99% of society to just hunker down at home while a few mega corporations are allowed to work seamlessly as mom and pop shops go out of business. So the NBA is beyond evil. Like, obviously, I have my opinions politically. I don't agree with how they're doing their activism. I don't think it makes sense. I don't think it helps. I think it's all political, I guess, like hidden behind a racial narrative. But even besides that, the fact that they were doing it as a diversion to stop people from realize that human beings were being replaced by cardboard cutouts and virtual reality fans and fake crowd noise. They even had, it was an empty arena where it was so quiet you could hear a mouse squeak or a shoe, a Nike shoe made in China squeak or wherever it's made. But nobody was talking about the fact that they were doing AI crowd noise. No, let's just talk about this narrative because the NBA is pushing it in our face. Super, super evil. And, everybody always talks about race all the time, obviously, like skin color. If you haven't noticed, everything's about race. I guess in America, it's basically like, they just want to replace all the white people with minorities and then claim that they don't hate you or something and that they can't be racist against you, but you can be racist against them. And, every character, every white needs to be transgender. I don't know. I don't really pay attention to like mainstream society. God is great. I'm not a victim. And, there's a lot of entertainment out there. So I don't need a Disney, rehash times 15 or Rocky 10,000 in order to be entertained. God is great, and there's a lot of stuff out there. But anyway, outside of the racial narrative that they push in America, I have to say this. The one thing that I could really prove, because obviously when it comes to skin color and different ethnicities, there are patterns that you can notice on average, but everybody's also an individual. God made everyone different. But with that being said, the one thing that I for sure can prove with race that I'm going to say, a racial angle that I really didn't hear that much about, was the fact that if you're Irish, let's just say you're so white that if you stay in the sun, you burn, right? I'm in the sun for 5 minutes, I burn. I'm too white. And then if you're super black, you're from Nigeria and you're dark, you could stay in the sun longer. This is an actual thing that you could point to like skin color and be like, that person can probably sit in the sun for way longer and that person, their skin will burn, so they shouldn't be in the sun. With that being said, a lot of, I'm not going to say all, but the people that they always tell us are the victims, they would say minorities, darker color minorities in lower income, or I would say inner city areas. I would think if anything is quote unquote racist, although that word's so overused, it's laughable at this point, if anything is, it would be locking people, including black people and brown people, in their houses so they can't get sunlight and vitamin D, and telling them it's for their health, while brainwashing them with a false paradigm, fake, racial narrative for 15 months, so they don't realize that the true racial activism would be them getting out of their house and being able to walk around, work out, or get in the sunlight. I can't think of anything more evil than what the NBA did, which is create a racial narrative while people are locked in their houses, so they don't even realize that the people who hate them the most are the ones that aren't letting them get exercise and sunlight. And arguably, I can't prove this, but arguably, people with darker skin might need more sunlight because, just based on like pigmentation. I don't know for sure. I'm not a skin doctor. With that being said, that's a racial narrative in which races are provably different when it comes to skin color and, how easily they burn or not. That was never talked about because the people running the show don't give a crap about anybody. They don't care if you're white or black. It's all just a game to them. So, I just found that talk by Phil Jackson really cool. I'm glad he said that. I'm glad he wasn't afraid because he's no joke. Someone mentioned he had 2 championships with the Knicks. He played 2 championships, I think 9 championships coaching, 11 total. The dude is a legend. Someone said, oh, he just got lucky with Michael Jordan and stuff. I mean, 11 doesn't sound very lucky to me. Maybe, but he won 2 as a player. Did he get lucky there too? Maybe he's the luckiest guy in the world with 11 championships, or maybe he's got something, some pizzazz that we can't really see. With that being said, thank you, Phil Jackson, for speaking out against what is the, in my opinion, destruction of America through false manipulation of fake activism. That's really politics. That's really the worst type of politics. And I just wanted to talk about when they did that. They did the most activism when the government and corporations were locking people in our houses. It's not a coincidence. All of a sudden, they care about black activism for 6 months before an election when everybody can't go to Walmart, or they can go to Walmart, but they can't go to a mom and pop shop. You can't leave the country. You can't really travel. Eventually they're setting us all up for an 88 or 100, multiple $100 billion vaccine sales pitch. Someone said, stop saying that. Stop coming to my live stream acting like you're a dictator or something. People come here and they're like, shut up. It's like, there's millions of things you could click on. YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, Facebook, Instagram, thousands of pages, hundreds of celebrities. Why come to my channel and tell me what to say and what to do? I don't understand it. It's like you're drunk or something and you stumbled into my bar and you're like, well, I don't want to be here. It's like, well, then walk out. I don't get it. But anyway, back to my awesome rant that everyone likes except for that guy. Stop saying what? It's like people get mad at the weirdest things. It's like, what part of today bothered you? Show me on the doll where today's talk bothered you. It's just the craziest timing that they brought up all that stuff. It's like, well, because of the George Floyd things, we're gonna put slogans on everybody's jersey. So okay, so what about the fact that all these people can't do anything? Well, let's not talk about that because it's more important to run circles around a false narrative that doesn't even make sense because a tragedy happened. That's more important than looking at the fact that both parties are printing trillions of dollars, which is going to hurt the pockets of everybody in America. Doesn't matter if you're black or white. This is going to affect you. You don't want to talk about it? No? You just want to wear equal opportunity on your jersey? Okay, you're going to be crying in 2 years when that price of eggs is like $10 for a dozen, but whatever. You don't want to talk about the fact that 15 days of slow to spread has lasted 2 months? No. You don't want to talk about the fact that they've replaced human beings in a sports game with AI, crowd noises, and cardboard cutouts? No, you don't want to talk about that. You don't want to talk about the fact that the government and the corporate class is mandating that you put a cloth over your nose and mouth. Your breathing holes are closed, and then you have players with breathing. They can't even... I can't breathe. But the slogan doesn't even mean I can't breathe for the mask. It means I can't breathe to George Floyd. People don't see the deception in that. They got athletes wearing I can't breathe masks on, but it's not for the mask that they're wearing. I mean, honestly, some evil, evil genius stuff by the NBA, the corporate class, and the government to deceive people so much. It's okay to talk about race. It's okay to talk about social justice. Just know what you're talking about. And if there's something going on where the entire world is living a sci-fi horror lockdown movie so they could force a vaccine into your arm and kick you out of an arena in 2 years, maybe let's talk about that. I don't know. Instead of the other narrative that they run you in circles around until Joe Biden gets elected. And then the funniest part, or maybe not so much funny, it's tragedy or comedy depending on your level of humor. Everything they said to claim about they care about black people so much. Oh my gosh. Dude, Kyrie Irving is one of my favorite athletes. Obviously, he's really talented, but I like him because he stood up to Big Pharma. He was one of the only people in New York or San Francisco, two Democrat cities. Here's the funniest part. On average, a lot of black people in cities were not getting the vaccine, more than white people and Asian, just statistically. But then they always vote for Democrats in large majorities. But the reason that Kyrie Irving and all these players like Andrew Wiggins basically got forced vaccinated, he regrets it, but he didn't want to sit out the season, so he made a decision he still regrets. He won a championship. He had an all-star season for the first time, and he still regrets getting vaccinated. These people in the NBA bullied this kid into doing it, and even though he has an NBA championship, he still wishes he didn't get the vaccine. That's how big of bullies they are. And those are Democrat cities. Those are Democrat cities. How come these athletes haven't realized that it was Democrats pushing the forced vaccine more? It's just true. They were. Republicans are in on the vaccine socialism. They're not innocent, but Democrats are worse when it comes to forcing that on you, and nobody even mentions it. They just keep voting for it. I don't get it. But anyway, you fast forward a year and a half after all the fake, equal opportunity activism, they won't even let a man play sports. Kyrie Irving is one of the most athletic people on planet Earth. He's one of the healthiest people. He's in the top 1 percentile easily of healthy people. Djokovic, same thing. But he can't enter an arena, and they got a bunch of fatties in the stands eating popcorn, sucking down high fructose corn syrup, but Kyrie Irving can't play. And I'm not making fun of fat people. I'm just saying the dynamic of like, here, we'll let in an audience, half of the country's obese, and you guys can slurp down slushies and, $20 hot dogs. But Kyrie Irving can't play because he didn't inject himself with synthetic mRNA, sponsored by Pfizer. Activists didn't figure that out. That's not social justice. They care so much about your race that they won't even let you play. It's insane. Everything that they claimed was a lie. They were just setting people up to get the vaccine. And I don't want to go on too much of a tangent because Lord knows I can on this, on the Lord's Day, on Sunday. But it's just insane. All of this, in my perspective, was a setup for Big Pharma. And they got both sides fighting over false paradigms, making excuses for this and that, Trump, Biden, racial activism. Well, I'm black and George Floyd. And, regardless whether you're Republican, Democrat, black, white, to me, the lockdown was a marketing scheme for the vaccine the whole time. It's like, look at the lawsuits. And I'm not saying that they planned this because I'm not allowed to say that. And honestly, I'm not going to say things I can't prove. But if you look at Pfizer and Moderna and the lawsuits, they're suing each other over technology that Moderna patented in 2013, 14. Like a decade ago. They're fighting over a decade-old patents in court for who gets the money. Trump signed a 2019 executive order 6 months before the lockdown that had the terminology in it, task force, vaccine task force. Does that sound familiar? Coronavirus task force, universal influenza task force. Wow, that's just the craziest coincidence in the world. Donald Trump just signs an executive order 6 months before a lockdown with terminology that Bill Gates said in 2018 he brought to Trump. Yeah, that's just shockingly, wow, just lined up. The universe just lined that one up. But in general, to me, the whole lockdown thing, from the beginning, I could show you where I said before the lockdown, I already knew what was going on. You think Big Pharma is going to pass up a potentially multi-trillion-dollar cash cow on this thing? From day one, before they locked down, I'm like, they're going to bring out a vaccine and they're going to mandate it. I don't even think I mentioned Trump today. I just mentioned both parties, and someone's having a conniption in the audience. Please, please don't say it's both parties. Ooh. It's like, yo, if you're mentally ill with like worship over politics, you got to go watch another channel. Please go watch Rallies on Loop and cream your pants. Don't come here. Seriously. I'm barely talking about anything. I'm just talking about the lockdown of 2020 because it's relevant to the video. And you're like having like a seizure over it. Seriously, grow up. If you're this childish, go, enroll in like kindergarten, but it's going to be weird if you're like 50 years old. So don't do that. Actually, it's really creepy. But in general, this is just the reality. I don't know. I don't wish, but it's like if a Democrat was president and signed the executive order, I would just say that. But the truth is, it was Trump. I'm sorry you don't want to hear that he was president and in power, but he was. It's really weird. Grow up or don't and go pathologically lie to yourself in a corner. I don't care. But in general, from day one before the lockdown, to me, I saw this all coming. I'm like, they're going to push a vaccine, they're going to rush a vaccine, and they're going to mandate a vaccine. I said all this stuff before they did it. How did I know? Am I a magician? Am I a wizard? No, I've studied modern history. I know that Big Pharma controls both parties. They paid off the television. All the sports leagues are working for them. You think there's going to be a new disease and Big Pharma is not going to tell you that they have the cure for it? Do you think they're going to pass that up? Of course not. So anyway, long story short, with the whole lockdown and all this like, oh, George Floyd, Black Lives Matter on the court, I saw it the whole time. They're going to get black and white divided. They're going to get left and right fighting over false paradigms. The Democrats are going to go further. The right's going to give them all the fuel to do it. And then the right's going to play the victim, even though they helped the Democrats and did backdoor handshakes to give the Democrats all the money, power, and control they needed. But then when Democrats do what they do, Republicans act shocked. It's not surprising that they're friends with them. And then, as this is all happening, as they're oppressing everybody, as they're stealing everything from you, as they're waiting to inject this in you, they got the perfect narrative to be like, well, what you should care about right now is Black Lives Matter on the court, LeBron James taking a knee, just wasting 5 months of your time while you're still not allowed to go out of the house, virtual fans, cardboard cutouts. I mean, the plot is obvious at this point. And honestly, just to tick off that one person, now that they told me not to talk about it, I'm going to. The perfect scheme happened after the election too, because everybody who was going to protest against the mandates, everybody that was conservative and right-leaning that's against the mandates, Trump lured them to a Fed trap at the Capitol, and most organizers that were protesting the lockdown, they all got arrested or had to lay low because the FBI was all on their ass because they followed the vaccine salesman to the Capitol. Trump's like, everybody needs to come listen to me talk about Mike Pence and I'm going to do something. And people are like, I got to go support him. And now where's all the vaccine protesters? Where's all the mandate protesters? Oh, they all got either arrested or hassled by the FBI. So now they're afraid to even like leave their house. Wow. That's about as shocking of a coincidence as a George Floyd Black Lives Matter kneeling protest for 5 months. So people don't realize that they got replaced by cardboard cutouts. That's about as shocking as the fact that they're fighting over 2014, 2013 patents in court, and the fact that I won't say his name, the president of the United States signed an executive order that Bill Gates told him about a year previously in 2019 before the lockdown. I mean, these must just be the most shocking coincidences ever. Ooh, we rushed it 5 years ahead of schedule under the PrEP Act, the liability shield, You can't sue Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson in court. Doesn't matter what happens to you. I'm not saying this happened, but if your arm fell off, if something happened, if somebody died because of it, you're not getting anything in court. You can't sue over side effects, injuries, or deaths because there's something called the PrEP Act. What's the PrEP Act, Anomaly? Well, under an emergency, all of a sudden, Big Pharma comes to the rescue and you can't sue them no matter how bad their product is. Oh, who signed the PrEP Act? Who has the control to do that? Well, it's the head of the HHS. That's who gets to declare the emergency to launch the PrEP Act. Well, Anomaly, who was the head of HHS under Trump? Well, it was actually Alex Azar, a former Eli Lilly pharmacy executive lobbyist who Donald Trump put in office after he got $1 million from Pfizer. Did he sell out, or is it a secret code to arrest all my enemies? It's a secret code, Patriots. He sold out to Big Pharma and hired a bunch of lobbyists to help you. You know, that's just about as goofy as the left wing running circles around BLM slogans. Both sides are, both sides think they're so much better than the other side, but it creates the perfect story. It's like you got the hero, the villain, you got black and white, you got red and blue, you got this party and that party, and they just bash each other's heads against the wall. And it's like, well, you don't understand racism, anomaly. Keep telling yourself that. Keep telling yourself, I don't understand racism, while you run circles around forced masked celebrity athletes playing in an empty arena with Microsoft virtual reality fans, cardboard cutouts, and freaking vaccine mandates. So actual respectable adults who don't want to inject synthetic mRNA in their bodies can't even enter an arena in New York City. Yeah, I don't understand. That's for sure what you should do. You should run circles around, just being honest, I'm sorry if this bothers people, Jewish executives. I could say white executives like Tim Pool and everybody. So, it's easy to like dunk on white people. It's like, even people will be like, white liberals, white this. Yeah, I understand. There's a lot of goofy white liberals. Yeah, white liberals are corny. But there's also Jewish executives. I know you're not supposed to say that, but that's just the truth. It's like, those are the ones calling the shots in the NBA. Adam Silver is Jewish. He's not. If you ask him, are you white or Jewish? He'd say he's white. I mean, Jewish. But anyway, I'm just accurately like portraying. That's just what it is. I know it's like easier to just like be like, Antifa's a bunch of white liberals. It's like, sure, but there's also other people there too. And BLM is just a bunch of white liberals. Yeah, there's a lot of white liberals in BLM. There's also black people in BLM. But people don't want to say that, because if you say there's black people in BLM, it just seems racist. So it's easier for Republicans to just like blame white people for everything, just like the left. But I'm just saying, it's not like white people are innocent, but there are also black people in BLM. No one wants to say that though, because it's like, it's just easier to like throw it all on the safe race to dunk on. I'm just being honest. That dichotomy is a little odd, but it is what it is. Thank you, Phil Jackson. Appreciate you. Very heroic, very epic. And, in this world, they say the further, I don't remember the old quote, but it's like the further that society drifts away from reality, the more revolutionary the truth is going to be. Phil Jackson didn't say much. He didn't have to say much. Just the fact that he's not like, this is amazing. There's got to be at least 20 to 30 to 40% of the NBA coaches that think this stuff, but they just can't say it. Sometimes it takes a brave person, a Kyrie Irving, a Jokovic, a Phil Jackson. He's not even doing anything that revolutionary, but he also is, because it's like, so edgy to just say the basic truth. The more we do it, the easier it gets. They can't play this game forever. And at the end of the day, we got to wake people up. What happened was crazy. The activism's fake. They're shoving it down people's throats, and I think they know what they're doing. I wish I had it loaded up, but there's a great G. Edward Griffin video. It's in black and white. It's from 1969, and he's referencing a book that I've read. It's called Color, Communism, and Common Sense by Manning Johnson. I've recommended it a bunch. Manning Johnson was a black Christian who turned into a communist, and he worked for the Communist Party in America in the 1900s. And then he realized what the communists were really doing. They weren't helping black people, and he wrote a book about it. This book is from the 1900s, and Manning Johnson, everything he said in that book is still happening today. I'm just being honest. I read it. I don't know if it's from the 30s or 40s or 50s, but everything he's talking about, it's all still happening. That's why if you play that 1969 clip of G. Edward Griffin where he's like, he's saying the communists will, they're using race to divide America and to push certain things, and like everything he's saying, it's still happening. If you're going to lock the country down, try to force mRNA vaccine in people's arms, replace human beings with virtual fans, tank the economy, make everybody poor, make everybody fatter, stop black people and all people from entering basically sunlight. And this is the most annoying part. And it's not just black people. I'm just going to say anybody, because it's really based on where you live and how much land you own. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying in the inner cities, it's obviously worse, but there's a lot of white people and other races, that Asians, Jewish people, whatever, etc. There's all races dealt with this to some extent, but basically if you live on a farm somewhere or you live in a mansion like Arnold Schwarzenegger, lockdown is not that bad. You got a jacuzzi, you could walk around. If you live in the hood, if you live in a tight area where it's not safe to walk around your neighborhood and you don't have a yard, these were the people that were most negatively affected, especially if you need more sunlight. I mean, it depends what, your threshold is, but they were hurting so many people disproportionately that didn't have access to exercise or a yard or anywhere to get out of their house, and they're jammed in multi-generational small houses with their family. How is that not making people sick? Everyone, if someone spoke the truth on television every day, everyone would have woke up and been like, yeah, actually, that's more racist than that, or that's bad, or whatever, whatever terminology you want to call it. That was crazy. Anybody with no land and no access to like exercise was way more negatively affected than people with land and a backyard. Not everybody has a backyard, and not everybody has a neighborhood they could walk around. Just crapping on these people for month after month after month after month. And then they have this convenient racial narrative to just distract people and run them in circles for 8 months until the vaccine comes out. And then they could treat people like, they're cash cow animals on a factory belt again. Insane stuff that happened. And, I'm going to say this before I end too, and this might bother people. I'm not sure why. I'm not going to name names, but the reason that the Republicans never are able to stop this stuff, like, make no mistake, Republicans let this happen. Republicans funded this. Republicans bragged about it. The president, who must not be named because someone's going to poop their pants, we'll rhyme his name since his real name bothers people. I'll just say Ronald Rump. Okay, President Ronald Rump. We'll just have to code it for people that poop their pants if I ever say anything about him. People like Ronald Rump were shaking hands with Gavin Newsom. He still says they get along. Phil Murphy. When all the chickens were about to come home to roost, Republicans are working with Democrats. Republicans are funding Democrats. Republicans are locking down with Democrats. Republicans are giving them all the money, power, ventilators, funding that they could ever want to shut down their state till November, so there could be a mass mail-in ballot election that, Republicans mysteriously take no accountability for until they lure all their supporters to a Fed trap in January and play the victim at Mar-a-Lago or whatever. But anyway, it's like Democrats mandated, Democrats push further, Democrats do the racial narrative. And the reason Republicans don't get the results that they want are not because the party's the innocent victim of the left, and if you just give me more money and then we'll fight them. That's not the truth. The reason that Republicans lose is because they're in on it from steps 1 through 9, and then Democrats do step 10, and then Republicans act shocked. So it's like, the one thing that bothered me the most that DeSantis was doing and all the Republicans were doing, I'm going to say DeSantis used to say this, and it used to annoy the crap out of me. He used to be like, well, the Democrats are locking everyone inside, but, I'm better. So, it's just going to be the elderly. And it's like, could you imagine being old? What? Because they're old, now they don't have freedom anymore? Leave the young, the old, let everyone make their own decisions. But it's like when Democrats go full Communist Manifesto and treat people like animals, Republicans want to let you know that they're only going to do that for 2 months. And after 2 months, they're going to sell the vaccine for a year until not selling the vaccine and fund the vaccine and then play the victim to the vaccine and tell elderly people that they should be locked inside, but everyone else should be free. I used to hate when Republicans said that, including DeSantis used to say that all the time. It's like, that's your big fight the left strategy, fund them, do what they did for 2 months, and then treat the elderly like prisoners. Oh, because you're old, now you need to sit inside and hide from the virus. No, exercise still applies to elderly. Community still applies to elderly. And I'm no scientist or doctor, and this is not medical advice, but I know from personal experience, locking yourself in a house with no ventilation is the quickest way to get sick. And the worst thing to do ever, especially if you don't have money and you don't live in like the healthiest area, which I did most of my life, you get what I'm saying? That's how you get sick. So when they're like, oh, we're Republicans, we're going to help the elderly by locking them inside for 2 years and everyone else can be free. It's like, okay, so they're not going to be able to get as much exercise now. That's going to destroy their body, especially at their age. You're cutting off their access to their family members. Democrats are doing it more, but you're doing it less. Social cohesion, family, community, these are not only things that I think make elderly people live longer, but in some of the places in the world where elderly people live the longest, this is proven that what makes them live long is their community and the fact that they have great social cohesion and a great network of elderly people and family to live with. In Italy, where they live the longest, this has been studied. So Phil Jackson's right about what the Democrat, I mean, he didn't say it, but the Democrats and their BLM style activism was a joke. It turned off a lot of people, but it's also just not actually helping. It's a distraction from things that are affecting everybody, including, if you want to say disproportionately, including the people that they pretend to help the most. They were probably the most negatively affected, if you could do statistics, and disproportionately affected from all of the lockdown, measures. And same with the vaccine mandate and all that stuff. But that's just my take. I always like to bring it back to this because I feel like both sides need to wake up. The Democrats for sure need to wake up. But if they do, it's not really going to fix it until Republicans also wake up a little bit and realize that if their party's in on it, steps 1 through 9, and Democrats do step 10, that doesn't mean Republicans are the victim. Like, the Republicans are masterful WWE characters where they do things. They work with the other side. They're friends with the other side. They implement all this evil stuff. They sign off on it. They do it. They screw over their own stuff. And then they somehow brainwash people into thinking only the left did it. And if you give them enough money and support, that they'll fight the left, even though they're working provably with the left. And they don't give a crap at all. It's like, I'm going to end on this note. And I've said this a few times, but I think it's really true. And I'm not just saying this as like an edgy racial angle. I truly believe it. Republicans and conservatives and a lot of these people, like the Larry Elders of the world, they'll tell black Americans to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Don't play the victim. You have to take life by the horns, and things that happen to you are your fault. You got to get out of it, right? That's what they say. But then Republicans, in my opinion, Trump has done this to people, just to be honest. Ronald Rump, we'll call him so people don't get offended. He's brainwashed Republicans and conservatives into playing the victim. They'll be like, black people don't play the victim. And then it's like, we're the victim of the election. We're the victim of the vaccine mandate. We're the victim of the lockdown. We're the victim of the left. Trump's the victim. He's the victim. He's the victim. It's turned into a victim movement because Ronald Rump has brainwashed people into thinking he's the eternal victim of problems that he got himself into. I've defended Trump 1,000 times, but he's not the victim of the lockdown. He's not the victim of Big Pharma. He's not the victim of socialism and communism. He was in on it. He was shaking hands with Gavin Newsom. He's still friends with Gavin Newsom. He's on television saying, I get along with Gavin Newsom. He's nice to me. They're friends, guys. He doesn't care. But he cares. He cares more that Thomas Massey told him the truth. Thomas Massey tried to stop communism, and Trump tried to kick him out of the party. Gavin Newsom went along with communism, and Trump shook his hand, and they're friends. That's who he is. He's in on it. But he's brainwashed people into thinking that you're the victim. So all I'm saying is, if you're going to tell another race to not play the victim, the least you could do is not play the victim. You're not the victim of an election that Republicans funded. Everything that Democrats did to you on November 2020, Republicans signed the bill to fund them the money, the resources, the support, and also to push the presidents that it's okay to do that. When Republicans didn't want to show up to work in March and April, Thomas Massey was warning people, not only is this the cheese in the socialist trap, but you're now setting the precedents that it's too dangerous to work. It's too dangerous for us to work, so we need to stay at home and vote from home. That's not constitutional. Congress has to be there to vote. So when Congress, including every single Republican except for Thomas Massey, said, we're going to vote on the most expensive communist socialist bill in modern history, but we're not even going to show up to work to do it, they're now laying out the groundwork for the mass mail-in ballot election. Thomas Massey's the only one who said this. If you think that the 2020 election was nonsense because there were too many mass mail-in ballots, which most Republicans believe, what you don't understand is Republicans laid out the groundwork and the presidents to do that because they themselves did exactly that when they wanted to hide at home themselves. And then they signed a bill that gave the Democrats the funding and power to do all this stuff. They put a hammer in the Democrats' hands. They show the Democrats how to hit you with the hammer. They show them a tutorial. They fund them, and they say that they'll bail them out of jail if they do it. And then Democrats hit you with a hammer metaphorically, and then Republicans say, we're the victim. And everyone says, we're the victim, we're the victim. I'm just trying to snap people out of victim mentality because just like with everyone else, we can't continuously do this. It's a trap. Just like Just like wearing a slogan on a jersey when you're being replaced by cardboard cutouts is a trap. This is a trap for the other side. Appreciate everybody listening. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. Thank you for being here. Have a beautiful Sunday. And I just want to say real quick, hats, and we have 2 new products in the store. Big Farmer, not Big Pharma shirts. Check them out. They're probably going to sell out at a certain point. We only bought a limited amount, so those are going to ship out soon. And then God is Great sweatshirts. Everything's made in America, high quality stuff. Check it out in my store, dreamrare.com. It's why I'm able to be independent. Unlike Republicans and Democrats, I don't take $1 million from Pfizer. I know that they always say, we're fighting Big Pharma. Joe Biden's not fighting Big Pharma. He's taking money from them. And then Republicans are like, we don't need their money. They absolutely do need their money, and they do take their money. So I don't do that. I'm very picky with sponsorships. I do very, very little. So this is my way of actually doing what other people pretend to do. Thank you, guys. God bless. And check out dreamrare.com for my shop. And streamrare.com. Streamrare.com has an article about the Phil Jackson stuff if you want to play it back and listen. Appreciate you guys. I'll be back soon. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support. Everything's made in the United States. Handpicked by me. Patreon.com/raretalk for $5 a month. You can help support me, support the show. If you haven't noticed, unlike other channels, I don't work with very many sponsors, sometimes none at all. And part of the way I'm able to do that is with the dreamrare.com shop and patreon.com/raretalk. So thank you guys for keeping this show free, unimpeded, uninterrupted. I'm forever grateful. My free email list is stayintouchwithme.com. So check the links below in the description, or just type in on any browser, stayintouchwithme.com, all one word. You'll find my email list, put it in there, and it's the least annoying email list you'll ever be on. I barely use it because I don't like getting emailed every day or every week. It's annoying, so I don't do it. Stayintouchwithme.com. It helps me take back some power away from big tech. Telegram, t.me/dreamrarechat or @dreamrarechat. Due to censorship, I post all my live stream and videos there. Sometimes I have some bonus content, and I try to give people a heads up when Facebook or YouTube won't. DreamRareChat at Telegram. My Instagram is @DreamRare. Thanks for everybody following there for shorter content. And DreamRareLinks.com. That's DreamRareLinks.com. Has all my stuff. My podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, my music on Spotify and Apple, my Rumble page, my BitChute and Gab page. All my links are found at DreamRareLinks.com. Thanks for watching, folks. God bless you. You already know I'll be back with more content soon. Appreciate it.